to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Let's not waste no more time. Let's get right to it. So, Chuck Daly nearly got fired midway through the 1986 NBA season. Okay. And Isiah Thomas was talking about how this a few years ago. Chuck Daly did get fired in 1986. Okay. He did get fired. So, Jack McCloskey, the Pistons GM at that time, he fired Chuck Daly after the Pistons went on a pretty good losing streak. They had a losing streak of 6 games when Jack McCloskey made the decision to fire Chuck Daly, but it did not go public yet. Okay. So nobody knew. So they beat the Seattle Supersonics 99-97 to go to 15-13. Okay. And then they had a stretch where they went 1-8, which included a 6-game losing streak. Okay. Which included a 6-game losing streak. Okay. And that's where Jack McCloskey made the decision to fire Chuck Daly. Okay. And but Isiah Thomas drove to Pistons owner Bill Davidson's house. He drove to his house and convinced Bill Davidson to walk back Jack McCloskey's decision to fire Chuck Daly. Okay. And just so you all know, Chuck Daly and Jack McCloskey never had a real close relationship. Okay. They never really had a close relationship in all the years that Chuck Daly was in Detroit. Okay. But, so I just said there was a stretch where they were 1-8. That included a 6-game losing streak. Okay. There was a stretch where there was an overall stretch where they went 4-15. And at one point they were 16-21. And, it was after a 102-101 loss to the 76ers at home. Right. That McCloskey made the decision to fire Chuck. And Isiah Thomas talked about it. He said there's a story that is rarely told. Chuck Daly was fired in the middle of the 86 season. Okay. And again, they had a 1-8 stretch, a 6-game losing streak, a 4-15 stretch. So that 4-15 stretch translated into losing 15 of their last 19 games. Okay. And so Chuck Daly got fired that afternoon. And Bill Davidson, Isiah Thomas drove to Bill Davidson's house, who was the owner of the Pistons, and said, "You're making a mistake. It's not the coach's fault. We don't have the talent to compete the way everyone thinks he should. If we lose this coach, I don't think we're ever going to win here." And then Bill Davidson was like, "Do you think Chuck is that good?" Isiah Thomas said, "Yes, he's a perfect coach for us." And so then Bill Davidson, so Isiah Thomas saved Chuck Daly's job. He convinced Bill Davidson to walk back. He convinced Bill Davidson, and Bill Davidson convinced Jack McCloskey to walk it back, although the owner does have final say. But Chuck Daly was rehired, and then Thomas called Chuck Daly in the afternoon and said, "Do you want your job back?" And so then Chuck Daly said, "Yes, I want my job back." So Isiah Thomas and Chuck Daly went down to McDonald's in the McDonald's in Orchard Lake, okay, and they talked about it. So after they hired Chuck Daly back, so after they quietly fired Chuck Daly, and then they quietly hired him back, the Pistons over their next 30 games, they went 24-6 over their next 30 games, and they eventually finished at 46-36. And if Chuck Daly had gotten fired, there would be no back-to-back bad boy Pistons. Okay. In fact, if they had fired Chuck Daly, the Lakers probably would have won 4 straight titles in a row. The Lakers probably would have won 4 straight titles in a row, although the Phoenix Suns and the Chicago Bulls might have something to say about all that. But yeah, if the Pistons did not walk back their decision to fire Chuck Daly in the middle of '86 and then rehire him, there would be no bad boy Pistons, okay? And they wouldn't have any titles. That era, that Pistons basketball team would have no titles, okay? So I mentioned that Jack McCloskey and Chuck Daly were never buddy, okay? The relationship was already strained, okay? And of course, it was strained in '86, but it just got worse and worse as years went by. And it really got strained after the '91 season, where Benny Johnson was gone, James Edwards was gone, a guy who rarely played, Scott Hastings, he was gone. And they replaced these guys. They replaced Vinnie Johnson with Darrell Walker. They replaced James Edwards with Orlando Woolridge. Then they replaced Scott Hastings with Brad Sellers, okay? So, and the main core was still there. But now they had a supporting cast of Darrell Walker, Orlando Woolridge, Brad Sellers, a guy by the name of Charles Thomas. They had a guy by the name of Bob McCann, William Bedford, Lance Blanks, rest in peace, Lance Blanks. So I think Chuck Daly saw the writing on the wall. Okay. Saw the writing on the wall, and that's probably the reason why he decided to get out after the '92 season. Okay. So, they finished the '92 season at 48-34, but they ended the season losing 7 of their last 10 games, okay? And then they got kicked out by New York in 5 games. That was a physical series. Technicals and flagrant fouls all over the place, okay? Then, of course, they were only 40-42 in 1993, and so leading to the Grant Hill era. And I believe Dumars, the only Piston in history to play with both Isiah Thomas and Grant Hill, okay? He played 5 years with Grant Hill, and he played about, 8-9 years with Isiah Thomas? Yeah. So, Yeah, so Joe Dumars was there all throughout the Bad Boys era. Then he was there through the early portion of the Grant Hill era. So, yeah. All right. That's it, and that's all for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. God bless you all. Peace out. I'll see y'all on the next one.